here. Bear with me 2 seconds, and we are going to go ahead and get this program underway today. Of course, this is the, I think, 7th or 8th edition in the Maximum Performance Weekly webinar series. Today's special program is with guest speaker Stephanie York, who is one of our most seasoned and most successful coaches over the years. She's been with Maximum Acceleration since the earliest days, and was also one of the key people who really helped build the Loan Toolbox company along with Tim Brahim and the rest of the leadership team at Loan Toolbox back all the way, back to 2002, 2001 even, wasn't it, Stephanie, that you got started? Well,
yeah,
anyway, today's program.
Do you want me to speak, Eric? I'm sorry.
That's all right. Yeah. You were back. You started with Loan Toolbox all the way back in the earliest days, back in 2001, right?
Actually, only 2003. There were 16 people that worked there at the time that I joined the sales management team. But it was pretty exciting because we shared an office with Tim Brahim's actual mortgage company. And that's 2003 is when everything exploded for a lot of the people that were in the industry at the time. So it was extremely busy. And right after I started working with them, we brought Greg Frost on board as a partner. And then it just continued to grow. I think they ended up with about 85 employees last I knew, before things changed a little for the industry.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and that's one of the reasons that I wanted Stephanie to speak with the audience this week, is because, Stephanie, you had the opportunity to see the master of efficiency and balance. And what a lot of people don't realize is Tim's mortgage company in 2003 did a little over 1,000 loans. I think it was 1,083 loans for just shy of $290 million in origination volume that year. If you do the math on that, originators, that's over 80 loans a month that his team was cranking out, and he did it with basically himself and 4 support staff. And Stephanie had the opportunity to see the inner workings of that in the most intimate fashion, which is why Stephanie is one of our lead coaches when it comes to balance, organization, and high productivity with minimum effort. And she is a master at the simple but beautifully executed system. And so what Stephanie's going to be sharing with us today is how to find balance in the storm of unprecedented opportunities. As we've all gone through the last 5, 6, 7 months here of just incredible, outstanding rates, we can get overwhelmed. And so Stephanie's going to help us with some simple, easy to execute strategies to help create that balance again in your life and continue to do the kind of volume that you want to be able to do during this unprecedented opportunity. So without further ado, Ms. Stephanie, why don't you go ahead and take us on down the road?
Well, wow. Thanks, Eric. I don't know if I could live up to all that. And thank you. What a great lead-in. I will say that, for everybody who's on the call right now, you're probably experiencing a lot of overwhelm. And throughout the time that I've been coaching and been working with people in this industry, there's hills and valleys, peaks and valleys, they say. And I think that we have seen unprecedented opportunity for quite a while now, with rates being really low, and we keep swearing in our emails that they might go up any time now, and they haven't. And I think that, like you said, Eric, I don't necessarily have a system that's going to make you be able to produce at a really high level really easily, but I will have to say that there are definitely things that many of us do, we aren't aware that we do, that keep us from being more productive and keep us from being, let's say, the most balanced that we could be. And this was a topic that was near and dear to Tim Brahim's heart when we first created the pyramid, which I think you now see duplicated all over the place. The very top piece was balance. And the idea was to build to that balance and always try to get your systems in place, get your platform in place on your business, get your team in place, and then you build to the life balance. And then the next step is legacy. And many of the people on this call and in this industry are making more money than they've ever made before. And I think that what we're going to talk about today is what I refer to as fluffy stuff. It's not necessarily the best databasing system. It's not this great interesting marketing tool that you're going to use. We're going to talk about what are the things that may or may not be getting in your way. And I do want to point out to everybody, there may be one tip in here that helps you, there may be 10, but understand that we're talking about very unique situations to each and every one of you. So I would definitely suggest that you take advantage of a session with one of the coaches talking about your specific balance issue. So we'll get going. So you wanted to be busy. This is what I get on the phone with my clients, and I'll often say, well, didn't you want to be closing 10 to 15 loans a month? Wasn't this the idea? And I actually just started with a gentleman coaching last month, and he had 20 loans in his pipeline, and prior to that, he was averaging 2 to 3. And all of a sudden, the 20 loans, and he is underwater, and just absolutely chicken with the head cut off. And I know that a lot of people on this call probably have been able to manage 10 to 20 okay, or 10 to 20 is your breaking point. We want to be busy, we want to make more money, but unless we put structure in place, I think Tim Braheem's favorite thing to talk about when we talked about team development and systems is you have to have a plan, or you're just throwing bodies and ideas at the same problem and you're not really solving it. So really ask yourself, do you want to do 20 loans a month? The money's good. I'm not going to lie. Everybody would like to have the money, and what to do with that money is probably a whole other call. But where are you happy in your production? I spoke with another lady who has 3 children, and one's in high school and one's in middle school, one's in elementary. And we talked about where does her production need to be. And what we're coaching on is getting her to 10 to 15. And after 15, she doesn't want more than that. She doesn't want to necessarily count the business. So because it's too much for her to think about. So we try to manage her loans and her business within that framework. And some of you may just say, I want more loans, more loans, more loans, and I want to fix the problem with the bottleneck in processing, or I just need to get another team person and throw them on it and they can make phone calls for me. But I want you to really think about what's busy for you, what's enough for you, and really start to plan backwards out of that. Here we are in December, and most of my people are putting together goals and business plans. Really calculate where you want to be next year and plan around that. That's a much more solid way than saying, I just want to take all the business I can and solve the problems when they get here, because that's where you can make yourself sick. You can lose referral partnerships. You can really end up in a bad place. So now we want to talk about some of the key areas for us to focus on in order to help you get more balance. And time seems to be the biggest problem for most people. There's never enough, right? And I have people who get very, very hectic. Within this mortgage business, we've got all different personalities. I mean, essentially, you guys are project managers. You have to wear all the hats. And most people outside of your particular work environment don't know how much you do. So it can get really, I don't want to say addictive, but we can talk ourselves into feeling like we don't have enough time. And I will often sit down with a client and say, okay, let's break down your time. There's 24 hours in a day. You're sleeping 8 hours. You're doing, if we break it down and we look at when are you getting up? Are you allowing yourself to spend a half hour waking up in the morning? What are you doing exactly with your time? Break it down and start making better decisions about what you do. We're going to talk a little bit more about that as we go through the presentation. What it says here is slippery slope. And I think that that's going to go back to time where we allow other people to take over our time. And once you allow one person to take over your time, they're going to come in and grab that from you. Because, hey, I hired an assistant and I told them anytime the referral partner calls or anytime somebody has a problem, get a hold of me right away. Well, you've got to learn where you're losing your time. I tell some of my people, once we start blocking out the first hour in their mornings, I had one gentleman who had kids and a wife and family, and he was planning parties. And on his cell phone, his friends and family would call constantly. And he didn't tell them that he needed to be focused. So the slippery slope is, who's taking up your time? Can you better communicate to those people what you need to do with your time? And, make a list right now. Who are the people who call you that are non-work related? How frequently do they call you? And can you adjust that and say, hey, you know what? I'll call you at lunch. Or I'm going to let you go to voicemail and I'll listen to it. I'm really focused on work. We're extra busy in my business, and I really need to dedicate my time to that. The next area under time is going to be planning. Now, I know a lot of people talk about time management. There's a lot of other businesses and companies that suggest that you do time blocking. And I think time blocking your entire day right now, unless you have a team of 3 people working with you, is nearly impossible. But what I am talking about is really, we'll go back to that not enough slippery slope, and let's figure out what do you have to do for your business. Now, if we don't want the peaks and valleys, you've got to do marketing time. You've got to talk to referral partners. You've got to call on leads. You've got to work with your processor to close things. So what we need to do is take the components of your business and break them down and figure out what do you have to do to maintain the business you have and what you have to do in order to grow the business to that same level the next month. I have all of my clients carving out the first hour of their day at least. And that hour is all working on the business. That means that they do status updates, they call referral partners, they make their marketing pieces, they enter information into databases, they meet with their processor or their assistant, and they get all that done first thing in the morning so that they can be more reactionary later on. The one thing I want to tell you, and the reason why people hire coaches, is behavioral change is one of the hardest things to accomplish. Otherwise, we'd all be the weight we want to be. We'd all have great eating habits. Our lives would be perfect if we could manage our behavioral change. But the fact is you have to plan for some of it, and you've got to make that dedicated time first thing in the morning. And if you have staff that come in and bother you, you've got to let them know this is sacred time. You can say, I'm working on my business. I need you to work on your business. Maybe you've got somebody who is handling all of your database marketing. That's the time that they're going to be dead focused on things that don't require them to communicate with other people. I also want to go into planning out the time that you spend outside of work. So if you're working really hard and you're closing 20 loans a week, a month, a week would be great, but closing 20 loans a month, what are you doing to give yourself time back? What are you doing to nurture yourself? So when we talk about planning, plan to get out of the office every day no later than 6 o'clock. All of my clients have a pop-up. If they aren't already doing this, we make a pop-up that comes up at either 5:30 or 5:45, and it says, get out. And what they have to do is take a checklist, and they have to close out their day. They've got 15 minutes to close out their day, and then they have to leave the office. What they do is come in the next morning for their on time and focus, dedicated to getting the day ramped back up. The next thing is quality, not quantity. Let's think about, okay, you're super busy. You're at the point where you're going to hire an assistant. You're really catching your breath, and you're a little bit dazed and overwhelmed. What we want to think about is, what about taking a half hour for lunch, even amongst all this madness, walking down the street and getting a cup of coffee? What about taking the afternoon, the evening off and going to a movie where you shut down your brain? You don't go home and get back on the computer. One of the books that came out a couple of years ago now was called The 4-Hour Workweek. Now, I had a lot of my clients read that. Most of my new clients I have read that. I don't think that in this world we can have a 4-hour workweek and make the money we make where most of us are positioned right now. If you had a team that was supporting you, you absolutely could. But in that book, they talk about the American work ethic, and I think it's a really good read for anybody. I have a lot of people who love the audio. So if you're not a book reader, get the audio. They're really good. The concept in there is that we talk ourselves into the fact that we have to sit at our desks physically either from 8 until 6 or 9 until 7, or we don't feel like we're being productive. We don't feel successful. And what this book will teach you is the quality of the time you spend on your business is much more important than the quantity of time. So if you can get all of your work done in 4 hours, and a lot of my clients find once we compact what they're doing and make better decisions about spending time on themselves, they can fit the busiest schedule inside a normal work day. Sometimes we spin our wheels. We try to do more because we feel like we have to. And hopefully, if that's you, get the 4-hour work week and start working on your own internal philosophy on what your work ethic should be. If you can get everything done in 4 hours, you deserve to go meet a friend for lunch. You really don't have to sit at your desk and make yourself feel overwhelmed. So please write down any questions you have about any of the stuff I'm talking about as we move through this. Next is opportunity, because we talk about balance and what we're all facing right now with these really low rates. What we want when it's slow is opportunity, and now we have opportunity. Although I know a lot of people on the call have probably already gone through the people who they can refinance. A lot of my people have refinanced people twice, some even 3 times. And what we want to do is make sure that we are continuing to work on opportunity, because there could be a wall coming up in January. Rates go up and opportunity slows down. Where are you going to be? You're going to be really hectic and then all of a sudden nowhere. So we've got to look at how are we working the opportunity we have now to ensure that we have opportunity later. And this is going to include balance. So you can't just manage the 20 or 30 loans that you have in your pipeline right now and scramble after refinances. And I know I'm kind of pushing the purchase button right now, but the fact is, if you have people in your life that can help you balance it, we need to utilize them. I find that people in the mortgage business are somewhat, martyrs isn't the right word, but some of them are self-punishing. You're hard workers, you're considerate, you are service-oriented, you want to do your best job, you want to make a decent living, but you want your clients to be happy, and you suffer for that because sometimes you feel like you're the only one that can solve the problem. And what you need to do is make sure that the opportunity you're looking at is the employees around you. Make them work for you. Have you delegated? Have you looked at everything you're doing day in and day out that you could delegate to employees that are either a direct report to you or somebody within the organization? I just worked with somebody who's in a branch, and he has processing is off-site through the company. And he has his own processor that he shares with somebody. But that process, he's never called the processor and worked with the processor and found out new ways to incorporate that person into the job. You just assume a processor's super busy. When you start to communicate with the other person, you alleviate their stress. You're no longer a shadow to them, and they're a person to you. All of a sudden, you're a team. You're working together. You're branded to get these things done. So look at all the staff that's available to you, and make sure that you are working with those people. Partners. Oftentimes, I have another gentleman who has 3 partners in his office, and somehow they've dumped on him all the legal work, contract work, marketing work, hiring. And I said, well, what are your other partners doing? And we broke down the 15 components the partnership needed, and he had a meeting with partners and said, the things that you've given me are requiring 40 to 50 hours a month for me to do, and I'm overwhelmed because I'm producing at this level. Can we split our job? And luckily he has some really nice partners, but they're all equal partners. There's no reason why you can't address these things. I don't want anybody on here to say that they are so busy that they can't address their time management or opportunity issues. Write them down right now. What are your biggest problems? And start making solutions for those. Managing time and workspace, you've got to manage your workspace. I can't tell you how many of my clients, I make them send me pictures, and it gets us giggling because I'll get these pictures of desks, and I make them send it to me while I'm on the phone with them. And I say, okay, how does this make you feel? Your desk has these piles on it, and that table over there has these piles, and I see stacks on the floor. Although sometimes people are proud, they'll send me a really clean office picture. And we talk about managing the workspace. And I've got to tell you, one of the healthiest habits you can do, and this goes back to Covey's successful habits, cleaning up your workspace, spending the first 5 minutes, get your cup of coffee or tea or a bagel or a donut or whatever you've got, set it down, and spend 5 minutes straightening up. It's the same thing as when you eat dinner at night and you put your dishes in the sink. It's easier to just scrub them up and put them in the drain. Then you don't have to deal with them the next day or the 2 or 3 days worth. So the same thing goes for your workspace. A cleaner space is going to make you feel less overwhelmed. And I actually had a lady tell me, I don't have time to clean up my office. And I said, okay, then you're going to have to spend Saturday morning. Come in and organize the whole thing. And we started 5 stacks. We started marketing issues, company issues, past clients, leads, and loans in process, and everything went in those stacks. And we had a miscellaneous pile that was tiny. And then the next 5 days, she spent each day getting rid of each of those stacks. And she felt so relieved and empowered by doing that. I cannot stress enough, if the one thing you take from the call is to clean up and organize your workspace, that's going to help you right there, not just psychologically, but physically help you. Okay, so please write down any questions you guys have. Another area, again, is we'll go back to team. I know we talked about utilizing your team, but this is really important. Team isn't just who you're paying. I want you to think about that. I have a really big office in Texas, and they have a front desk girl, and they hired her to be a receptionist, but she, I got her to look at her resume. She wasn't assigned to anybody, but she was doing stacking orders and stuff, and we found one of my ladies was really super busy but didn't have time to get an assistant, and we found that this girl sat there for about 4 hours a day with nothing to do. So we asked, could we have her organize this? Could we have her enter information in the database? And they said, sure, keep her busy. So we had a 4-hour-a-day assistant we didn't pay for. Somebody who was being paid by the team, by the company, that they were happy to have her fill up her time. And empower that person and say, I'm really happy you're helping me. Thank you so much. Do these things. Ask me questions. Here's a checklist of stuff you could help me with. I also want to say that if you're super busy, I have another gentleman in the Washington, D.C. area who went from, I think, 5 or 6 loans, and he's closing 25 loans a month. He does have an assistant, finally, that we got on board, a good one that we're keeping. But meanwhile, there was a lot of marketing that we needed to do. And so we looked, and his wife, who had just gotten her master's, had some free time. She hadn't gone back to work. They have a young child, and the young child was going into school a couple of hours a day. And he said, would you mind helping me with marketing? And she's really crafty and loves it. So we said, let's bring her on board, see if she can help us out a little bit. Is your boss sitting there and not doing things that maybe he could help you out? I have another gentleman in Albuquerque whose boss does not do production. And my guy went from, 6 loans on up to 18 to 20 a month and was fairly underwater. And I said, well, get your boss in there. What can you hand off to this person? Because he has a vested interest in you closing more loans. If that person isn't going to help you, don't ask them. But if that person isn't doing anything and they're making money off of you, if you look at them and say, I could close 4 more loans a month if you could just help me. Help me call on conditions. Help me talk to the processor. That person's going to make money off of it. They're going to be more willing to work with you. Coworkers. Some of us have coworkers who maybe aren't as sales-oriented. There's a lot of personalities in business, as I mentioned earlier, and we might want to look at who in your office maybe doesn't have as much business, and they might want to come and help you, again, get needs fulfilled, needs lists, and call on conditions, and maybe create or send out a marketing piece and communicate with the processor. And maybe you give them a bonus off of each loan that they help close. Sometimes you'll have somebody within your organization that may want to become a junior loan officer under you, still run their own production, but they're just happy they don't have to go out and sell themselves. They're not a sales person. If you yourself are somebody who you find you're struggling between 2, 3, 4 loans and you don't really like the everyday going out and selling yourself, you might want to look for a busy loan officer that you could partner with, still manage your production, but become an assistant loan officer or transaction coordinator to them, and you'll get a jump in your salary, and I find it's very fulfilling. I actually have an office in the Sacramento area where the processor, she brought her dad on to be a loan officer, and the poor guy is extremely detail-oriented and couldn't do 1 to 2 loans a month, but he is incredible putting loans together and incredible communicating with people. So my guy opened a branch and brought him on board as his transaction coordinator / processor, and the guy loves it. He's thrilled with his new role. He feels fulfilled, and he's really helping my guy out. Here's the next one, a licensed therapist. If you feel like all the stuff I'm talking about, yeah, that's not really applying. If you are truly overwhelmed and you're feeling depressed and you can't pull yourself up and you're just feeling like there's nothing left, you may need to go talk to a doctor or a therapist. There's nothing to be proud of. You don't have to say, I don't need help because I've got it. There's no stigma to getting this kind of help, and I want to put it out there just to say that some of us, we need professional help sometimes, and I want you to feel empowered to go get it if you do. And lastly, a coach. It doesn't have to be me or one of the Maximum Acceleration people, although we'd love it if you'd come on board with us, but there's people within your company and people within your networking groups or somebody that could help you get your arms around what you need to do. They can help you sometimes see much more clearly than you can yourself. And make sure that you delegate. Again, this goes back to your team. If you're not looking at everything you're doing every day and getting rid of those low payoff activities to people that you're paying, and you keep pushing the panic button, then you're losing the power of the income that you're giving them. You're losing your opportunity, and you may be losing your mind. So now is when you have to better utilize your team. So again, write down any questions you may have about that. Next, another key area is prioritize. This is going to go back to that hour first thing in the morning. I want you to think about, do you sit down at least once a day by yourself or with your team and prioritize? When my people bring on a transaction coordinator or an assistant, or they have a great relationship with their processor, I actually hear that they don't meet with that person except maybe once a month or if there's a problem. You know what? Get control of your day. Being overwhelmed equals way too many focuses. So let's get our focuses narrowed down. First thing in the morning, most of my people have a 5-minute meeting with their assistant so that they can both capitalize on prioritizing the rest of that day. What it does is, I want you to think about this. If you meet with your assistant and you let that person know what you're prioritizing, they start to see how you think. They start to think like you, and they start to work like you want them to work. I want you to really think about that. There has to be an order to your day. You control it. Nobody else controls it. If you allow a realtor to call in and run your day, they will absolutely do it. That's what they love to do. They thrive on it. So keep in mind that you've got to break down what you've got to work on, take that hour each morning and do it, and then make sure that it's working for you. If you feel like your day is too out of control too often, maybe 5 times a day is better for you. Do whatever it is that's going to work for you. Okay? Use a system of some kind, a planning sheet, whatever you need. I have a daily checklist that comes with this call, and it's a super simple tool. But what most of my people do is when that pop-up happens at 5:45 on their day, they take that daily planning sheet and they write down everything they've been working on, and then they leave the office. It shuts down their brains. It allows them to close out their day like they're locking up their storefront. And the next morning, they come right back in, and everything they were working on was right there. They don't have to lose focus. The focus is right on that piece of paper. So you're going to get a copy of that. And by all means, let me know if there's any questions. And then another thing is, when I first start coaching with people, they'll often have 5 or 6 systems. Technology is going to kill you. If you go to a webinar, go to a seminar, go to a conference, and they sell you 4 or 5 different things, all of a sudden, bam, you've got new technology, and you're not using the old one. Sit down and write down everything you're paying for, everything you're a part of, and then get rid of a couple if you're not using them. Literally, shut them off, return them, do whatever you've got to do. But start using your technology to better help you. That's a whole other webinar, but really focus on what you've got. Because if you paid for 5 systems and you're not using them all, you're going to feel overwhelmed that you're not getting your money's worth, and it's just another thing you don't need in your head. Okay? Here's kind of what the daily checklist looks like. It's just what we use to close out the day. Some of my people, they start each day by writing down on their daily checklist what they need to focus on that day. They give a copy to their assistant, their transaction coordinator. Sometimes my people, depending on how many loans you have a 5-minute meeting every morning with the processor to find out how they can help that person. But what it just starts off with is action items are the things that we coaches give you to do. So I have all of my clients start off their list by making sure they focus on the action items they've been assigned that week. Most of them are business building. And then you fill in the rest of the lines. This is just a snapshot of the checklist. We're going to be sending you a copy of it. Okay, now another area you've got to focus on is your plan. I mentioned earlier that we're in December. We're working on business plans for next year. If you're overwhelmed and you're finding that you're closing out the year a little bit hectic, you've got to sit down. I just had 3 of my people over the weekend. They sat down Saturday morning with their cup of coffee, and they wrote out their plans because they didn't have time during the week, and they felt they wanted to be really clear, very separate from work. I have one guy who I'm coaching who goes to Panera Bread Company at lunch, and he's so far halfway through his business plan for next year, and we've got 10 goals that we want to achieve. Any little bit helps. 5 minutes first thing in your day, you plan for the rest of your day. 5 minutes at the end of your day, you plan for the next day. Make sure your team has a meeting first thing every day. Set a timer to stay in your timeline. And then, break out the first hour of every day to work on your business. We've already mentioned all these things. Every single one of these, even if it's just 5 minutes, first thing every single morning before you turn on your computer, that is a plan. So I don't want you to feel like you've got to have all this stuff incorporated. Again, let's go back to being as efficient as possible and making one behavioral change. If you make one and it becomes a habit, then you add another. If you try to do that one a month, you've got 12 new habits by the end of the year. A lot of people say, I want one a week, but I will tell you behavioral change is sometimes much harder than getting one change a week. So let's just focus on getting one change. 5 minutes at the end of your day to close your day out, get that pop up at 5:45, and then first thing in the morning, work on your business. Many of us are working in a distorted reality, and I know that I talk about the fluffy stuff. Again, it's the fluffy stuff is how we feel about things and how we are reacting to things, whether we've got a fear of failure or a fear of success. And in this picture, does this lady look like she's stressed with too much to do or in control with organization? We see the stacks, but we see her kind of just looking and reading through something. She's got a little cup of coffee. She's holding her hair back, which could be stress. Or maybe that's her favorite way to read. I want you to pay attention to how you're feeling day in and day out. I have something I give my clients called an emotional ladder. And on that ladder, at the very bottom is anxiety, despair, depression. At the very top is joy. And in between are 20 emotions. And what I teach people is we can fake ourselves out and feel like we're stressed beyond stress and full of anxiety. But if we really look at the reality, we're doing the best business we've ever done. Our bosses are happier with us. We're bringing more money home than we've brought home. We have more opportunity than we often get in this business. So where is the stress coming from? Is it internal? And then you write down the stuff that's stressing you out. And is it that there's real things that you're not getting done, or are you just feeling overwhelmed? So if you're feeling overwhelmed, make action plans. Write down exactly what you've got to do to solve the problem. And then realize that some of us get addicted to the perception of stress. We feel like we've got to be reactionary or we're not doing our job. And what we're talking about is turning it into more proactive and getting that balance back. You are in control of your day. And a lot of this is going to take practice. And another word on here I've got is instinct. There's a great book out right now, and again, a lot of my people love the audio. It's called The Willpower Instinct, and it is amazing because it goes back to how our brains react when we're tired. When it's about 5 o'clock, you ate lunch at 12, you ate probably too much, got sleepy around 2, 5 o'clock, you're hungry, you're exhausted, your brain isn't working anymore, and you've got to make some decisions. What it talks about is putting yourself into a better place so you can make better decisions. And I highly recommend that book. If any of you have questions, email me, let me know. It's in audio form and in written form, depending on what you like. But it gives you, in each chapter, it gives you exercises to learn how your willpower works in your life. And grabbing back more time and not having a distorted reality is willpower over your situation. So it's just a great practice for you to have. And again, the word practice on here is all these things you have to do them regularly in order for them to become habits. Okay, so this takes us back to more fluffy stuff, which is managing your mind. Choose your own starting point. Most of my clients find that after the 6 months that we're done coaching, their favorite habit is that 1 hour blocked out first thing in the morning. It's the one thing that has made a huge difference in their life, because that's when they're in control and they're empowered, they get things done. So choose your own starting point. If you feel like you're not getting home in time, but you're not doing anything really productive in the evening, set the 5:45 alarm. Close out your daily checklist and get out. Go do something for yourself. Go to a movie. Go make dinner if that's. I love cooking. So and maybe you won't have six-pack abs this year. This takes me back to a lot of my clients have these really high goals that we set up last year in January, and then they got inundated with business this year. And they want to go to the gym 6 times a week. And I have one client who absolutely wants to get a six-pack abs. And I got to tell you, the guy is doing monster bike rides. He does Pikes Peak, and he does all these charity bike rides, and he's riding his bike all the time, and he's really fit and healthy and does yoga, but he hasn't got the six-pack abs, you know? And I said, how important are those six-pack abs? Because the people that get those, that's really a part-time job. That's 30 hours that they're spending on nutrition, and maybe they're not eating a bowl of ice cream with their family like you are, and maybe they're not relaxed when they're at events. You know, so let's make sure that we haven't set goals for ourselves so that we fail on them. And it might not be six-pack abs. It might be, I've got another lady who's really, really busy with 2 little kids, and she wants to go to the gym all the time. But instead of making it to the gym, she goes once a week with her kids. She goes to the playground and plays and gets exercise that way. Or they go to the pool and they have a bunch of fun. So readjust some of your expectations for yourself. And, sorry. Let me go back real quick. Evaluate the activities and relationships that you have in your life. I have another lady who has a very draining family. They're very negative. And what we've done is really limited her impact by saying, I'm going to spend this day with them once a month and have dinner, and the rest of the time I'm not going to worry about them. I'm not going to participate in their aggressive negative energy on the phone. And she's a much better balanced person because of it. Make sure that you've got people that are positive in your life. Try to work out any negative energies. That includes coworkers. If you've got an employee who's not good, get rid of them, replace them. Next, choose the end of your day. Choose when you leave. Don't let your day choose it for you. And I've had every single person say that that said to me that they can't do that. We've managed to work it out so that their day no longer runs them. They control it. Plan non-work activities. If you get them into your calendar, you will do them, especially if you create the downtime and you schedule it with other people. You absolutely will do this. Make plans with others. Get balance back in your life. I have one lady who moved cross-country, and she didn't have a lot of friendships, and she really missed that aspect of her life. So we got her out on meetup.com, and she went and joined a hiking club. She joined a church. She has a book club. She now has 3 good friends within 3 months. Now they're not best friends, but we'll see how they develop, but she has people to interact with. Work will always be there. We always work, but we don't always have today for yourself and your family. So try and grab that back. Now, here's a cliche. Work smarter, not harder. We've all heard it. But are you really looking at your day and wondering, how could I be smarter about this? All I'm asking is that you sit back from this call and start to really think about what are the areas that you could be working smarter at. Where are you beating yourself up? When you only did 1 or 2 loans a month, you could spend all your time in those loans and still have hours a day to call referral partners. Are you now spending all your time in your loans shoring up things and you're not scheduling time to call your referral partners? That's the struggle that you may close off opportunity for yourself next year. We don't know when, but you don't want to be that person. So make sure you're working smarter and making the time for what you need. Define your own work experience. Create systems that work for you. Let go a little or a lot. Nothing's going to break if you take one afternoon that you're just ready to cry. Please go to a movie, or leave and go walk around the mall. I don't care. Take a break. Get outside help if the pressure does not go away. And things nothing's worth missing out on your family and your life. At the end of this life, they always talk about writing your epitaph. Nobody's going to say, well, I closed most loans in 2013, and we're going to say, my kids were happy. My marriage was good. I had a great relationship with God. I had balance in my life. So keep all of this in mind. And please take advantage of a free session. I can't tell you how many times, just this last week, I talked to 3 separate people. They're not going to sign up for coaching with me right now. They need coaching maybe down the road. But we spent a solid hour putting together a plan for them to not only get more managed time, but what were they doing with all the leads they had? What are they doing about their loans? Do they have a pipeline report? Are they using their systems correctly? Do they need an assistant? What are the 5 to 10 things they need to do before they hire an assistant? And they walked away from the session feeling much more comfortable about where they were. Someone else can often see things that you can't. I have clients who get so busy they skip our call, and I catch up with them, and they say, I really wish I wouldn't have missed the call, because 5 minutes or 10 minutes on the phone with me can help reframe what's going on with my client's world. And, we've got a lot of great coaches. Take advantage of the free session, because it might make a difference. You might get 5 ideas that are specific to you that are going to help you through the end of the year. Often people don't have someone to talk to about it. My clients tell me things they can't tell their boss. Often we get stuck when someone else can see the way out. You may feel like there's no solution to what you've got going on. We may have 10 answers. And another opinion on what you're doing is critical sometimes, because you may say, I think I know what I'm doing, and on a session with one of us, we could say to you, you're dead on, you're doing great, keep doing that. And that affirmation can really help you get buoyed and feel so good about things. So please take advantage of the free session. Now let's take any questions if anybody has any. I know I've gone on and on here, but I hope I've shared some information that's helpful to you.
Also, guys, keep in mind that you do have the option, if you don't want to necessarily label yourself, as you may have been seeing throughout the webinar, Stephanie has the chat window up on her screen. If you don't want necessarily everybody to see your comments or thoughts, you do have the option of private chat questions to either me or Stephanie. And actually, Stephanie, if you drag that off to the side, you'll still be able to see it, and I can prompt you when you've got questions. I did have one come through on the private chat that I thought was a very novel question that I thought was definitely worth looking at. One of the things that, the question expressed was basically, how do you leave work at work? What are the keys to being able to shut down the work stuff and move into the home stuff? Stephanie, if you wouldn't mind, I know that that's been a common question, and to be honest, something I personally struggle with.
Sure. I've addressed it a lot. I hope I'm not beating the same drum, but if we want to talk very specific, you've got to start early in your day. For me, to have my clients be very successful at that, you have to control your day more than you do. I find that it is a psychological issue. And Eric, I'll say you go right back to the 4-hour work week. Are you telling yourself that sitting at your desk, at your computer for 12 hours is going to make you more successful than sitting at your desk for 9 hours? And if you've got to address that mental image and that internal dialogue that you're having, then if I leave the office at 5, do I feel guilty that I'm not working harder? Do I feel guilty that I'm leaving something undone? Am I letting people down? Is your internal dialogue forcing you to work longer than you need to? That happens to probably 50% of the people that I work with. We in America have a work ethic that's going to kill us. We take in, I can't remember the statistic, maybe you remember it, Eric, where we take in more information in, is it a week, than most small businesses took in a year back in the 1960s or 70s, or whatever the statistic is. It's just atrocious. So we are burnt out, but we're trying to catch up all the time. What I strongly recommend is use a copy of the daily checklist that comes with this call. Organize yourself. And if it's, you call all loans in process, call all leads, call these 3 realtors, and you put that on that checklist, and you set a timer. I know, Eric, you've got kids, you've got the wife, you're very involved with your church and your community. and you work really, really hard. You're on the computer, I don't even know if you sleep. But at some point, you're taking away from your family and your kids and your church if you're over-involved in your business. And if you're not involved enough in your business, you can't afford the other stuff. So what you've got to do is create a definitive line. And if that line is 6 o'clock, I'm going to, and you know, you could even vary it. Monday could be 6, Tuesday could be 7, Wednesday could be 5:30, but you create a calendared appointment that pops up 15 minutes before you want your day to be done. And when it pops up, that's a drop-dead time. You get out your checklist, you write down everything that you're doing that moment, you prioritize all your stuff, and you place it over your keyboard, you get up and you walk away. I find that some of the people, I have a lady who works from her house, and she has a big company that is working really well in one state, and she lives in another where she's also managing her business. And it's really hard to leave your work when your work is in your house, but you have to do it. And it takes discipline. I don't know if that helped you at all. I know that hiring somebody or getting an accountability partner who you can talk to about your feelings about ending your day. Say you get a friend of yours and say, I need to stop my day at 5:30 or 6 every day. You tell them, you know what, can we talk every day around 5:30 or 6 so you can talk me off the cliff and I can close out my day? Maybe that works. Or you may partner up with somebody else in the office and say, I need to leave every day at 6 or my wife is going to divorce me. And you and that person walk out of the office together at the same time. I hope that helps.
That's some awesome suggestions, Stephanie. I think the biggest element of it is you know, we talked about, you know, the biggest level is David Allen is the one who really mentioned the majority of this is you know, that the biggest stress comes from the unkept promises and agreements. So those promises need to be dealt with, scheduled, or adjusted, but they can be realigned. And I think that's the biggest issue is there's a big difference between doing it and planning it. And so that's where I think that at least that's the way it resonates with me in your response to that question, Stephanie, is, you know, if you guys are planning your work, it doesn't necessarily mean you're doing it right now. But if you capture it in your system in a way that you'll be reminded of it and you've planned it into, I mean, maybe it's schedule the activity for the following day. If it's a 15-minute project, plug it in somewhere on your calendar to remind you to do that 15-minute project, or plug it into that 1 hour of focus time first thing in the morning. All right, guys, keep posting your questions as we begin to shift to the wrap-up on today's session. I'm going to go ahead and move just a little bit differently here as we go ahead and finish up today's program. Do want to go ahead and take an opportunity to continue to allow you to post your questions. Do want to go ahead and allow you the opportunity to go ahead and get those into the chat log. We do save the chat log, and our coaching team will be following up with you as appropriately as we wrap up today's questions in case there wasn't anything you had a chance to get to today. Did want to give you a couple of quick things. As Stephanie mentioned, there are a couple of free gifts for you on the heels of today's program. Everybody who is listening to this call or watching this video will have the opportunity to receive the daily task sheet that you heard Stephanie mention multiple times today. You'll also get the free coaching session with Stephanie if you would like to be able to get some hands-on tactical guidance on your unique situation and how you want to take some of these principles and ideas and apply them to your specific business or life to create some of that space or balance in your life that today's program has been focused on and that Stephanie has done such a wonderful job talking about. Of course, you know, there's no cost or obligation for the strategy sessions. There are two ways to grab a hold of that strategy session, if you will. By the way, you know, the thing is, coaching is so dynamic and unique to each client that the fastest and easiest way to help you understand the true value of coaching is to actually experience it, which is one of the reasons we do these strategy sessions. You know, more often than not, as Stephanie mentioned, it's not that coaching is the right time or the best thing for you right now, but it is also the opportunity for you to be able to get some direct guidance and support. You can, in an hour of time, walk away with a solid action plan for how to get back on track with what you're trying to accomplish. If you'd like to take advantage of that, web browser just popped open that you can just punch in when would be a good time. Our team will reach out to you and get that appointment scheduled for you with Stephanie as soon as humanly possible. Try and get that on the calendar. Otherwise, we've got some exciting stuff coming up in the next couple of weeks of the series. social media expert Mark Madsen will be joining us next week's program Tuesday at the same time and station, if you will, 11 o'clock next week, Tuesday the 11th of December. So we'll be, wow, that'll be fun, 12, 11, 12. We will be talking about how to make your social networking work for your business. How many of you have LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter accounts, and you use it frequently, but you're not generating any business? By the way, there's one other quick question I just noticed popped into the Q&A here. The name of the book that, oh, there you go. Stephanie's chatting back the response right now. 4-Hour Workweek is by Tim Ferriss, who's the author on the 4-Hour Workweek, if you want to look that up on Amazon.com or Barnes & Noble Nook, or if you have an e-reader, I believe there's an e-reader version of it as well. Anyway, next week's program is going to be focusing on how to make your social network marketing work for you to generate leads and generate business. And this is something that Mark Madsen has really perfected in his work with real estate agents as well as his work in a mortgage company. Otherwise, constant advice, as you lead these webinar programs, don't take an hour of your day and just absorb and hope it's going to work for you. Make a specific plan to put these ideas in play in your business. And so 3 simple guidance at this point. We wouldn't be doing our job as coaches if we didn't help you pull this all the way through to a specific tactical action plan. So ask yourself these 3 questions before you hang up, before you jump off this webinar. Take 30 seconds to decide one thing. What was the one most valuable thing you heard Stephanie share today? Secondly, what step do you need to take to make it a part of your daily business from this point forward? And 3 is, by when will you have that action completed? If you'd like any help, support, or guidance along the way, just feel free to reach out to us. We're always here to help, of course. We are going to be leaving the line open and the conference line chat Q&A box open for just a few more minutes here. If you'd like to be able to, again, take advantage of one of those strategy sessions, feel free to just post your request for a strategy session in the chat box or jump to the browser window that opened up for you a couple of minutes ago. Otherwise, take these ideas and do something with them. Put them in action. Stephanie has spent a lot of time and energy behind the scenes the last 2 weeks to bring you some incredibly solid information that you guys can use and hopefully take to make your business grow. Do something with it, though. Don't just use it as time spent. Turn it into something that has payoff for you. With that, Stephanie, any final thoughts you'd like to share with the group before we hang up today?
No, I think they've probably heard me talk long enough. I guess if you're on this call, and I said this last week and I say this every time, if you're on the call, you're obviously looking for answers. You're looking for something that will help you be better at what you do. So like Eric said, do one thing. Just if you write one thing down and you do that, you will have gained from this and you will be better off. Just if you're overwhelmed, try to work hard at getting some balance. It's really important to your health and your life.
Awesome. All right. Well, if you'd like to take advantage of the strategy session, just give us the easiest phone number and email address to catch you so that Stephanie or the sales team can reach out to you and schedule that appointment for you. Go ahead, just if you want to post that in the chat or, again, jump to the web browser. Otherwise, thank you again, Stephanie, for an absolutely wonderful program. Thank you for sharing some incredible insight and some valuable lessons from the clients that we work with every day. For those of you on the call, again, we'll leave the Q&A line open for just a few more minutes here so you guys can post your comments, thoughts, feedback. Also, by the way, we've talked about this as we begin to continue this series. You're more than welcome to go ahead and post ideas about what types of topics or issues you're struggling with. What are some areas of your business that you would like to see us provide some additional guidance or support on in this weekly webinar series? Our initial goal in setting out this project was to create a community of people who connect on a regular basis to help each other grow our businesses and to create that sense of community environment here in the Maximum Acceleration family. So we'd love to hear your thoughts about what you'd like to hear about in future weekly webinar series events, and we'll do everything we can to try and serve those needs. We just are looking for guidance and feedback from you as far as ideas. We're always open to hearing more about what you'd like to have these programs focused on. So again, other than that, guys, it's been an exciting week. This time of year is a wonderful and can be crazy time of year. We wish you all the greatest success, and I'm glad that Stephanie was able to bring to us such a wonderful program today to focus on. Thank you all, and make it a great week. Take these ideas and do something with them to improve your business this week.